We still have a lot of questions, of course, about logistics, about the economic impact, the cost of this project, but it's not lost on us that 6 souls are still unaccounted for. How long will this remain a recovery mission?
Well, unfortunately, recovery is not easy. There's poor visibility. There are tides in and out. But I'll tell you, having met some of the divers yesterday as they came out of the water for what was, at that time, still a search and rescue mission, the best people are working on this. I talked to the fire chief. His only concern was that his people weren't necessarily inclined to pace themselves. They came off a shift or out of the water and were already thinking about going back in. People are moving heaven and earth on that. And in the meantime, what we know is that there are 6 families that, everything was normal for them 2 days ago. And now their lives are never going to be the same. A 7th who was very seriously injured, and we're waiting for word on their condition as well.
You have now received an emergency funding request, Secretary, from authorities in Maryland. How much is the state asking for, and how quickly will the administration act on that?
We're going to process this request immediately. We've got to make sure that funding is not a source of delay in getting to work. And even this afternoon, our Federal Highways Administration team already sitting down with the Maryland DOT to talk design, procurement, and what it's going to take to scope and launch that project of getting a new bridge built. This isn't going to happen overnight. The original bridge took about 5 years to put up. And this isn't going to be cheap either, but we do have emergency relief funds to help in these kinds of situations. We really cannot yet say what the total price tag will be. One thing I would point to is in 2007, that Minnesota bridge collapse. It was a different situation, but it was another time when the federal government came in to help Minnesota rebuild. That cost about $260 million. This is a larger span of a bridge, likely in many ways a more complex project. We just don't know the full scope yet.
Well, Secretary, we keep hearing it's a different time now. It's a different political era than it was in 2007, and that this may not go easily on Capitol Hill. Have you begun engaging lawmakers already on what will be your emergency funding request?
Yes, we had a conversation yesterday with members of the Maryland delegation, Senators Cardin and Van Hollen, several House members, including the representatives who look after the area most directly impacted. I know they're going to leave nothing to chance in terms of making sure the resources are there. Look, I know that politics are divisive right now, but this can't be a political issue. This can't be a partisan issue. To anybody who's on the fence on that, when the time comes, I would just say, this is happening in Baltimore today. It could be your district next. And we always do best when we pull together and support any one part of our country that's hurting.
You said earlier in the White House briefing the most immediate jobs are channel cleanup and reopening. Part of that, of course, is going to be moving the Dolly itself, which I know is a very delicate matter. Do you have any sense, though, of how long it will take to free the 40-some ships we understand are trapped in the port?
I think it will take a while, and those are ships that we're obviously concerned about. They even include vessels that are overseen by the Department of Transportation, though those ships are not currently actively tasked. There are vessels that had cargo loads on them. They are being offloaded. Mm-hmm. Also, cruise ships that were planning to head to Baltimore are no longer obviously going to be able to berth where they had planned to. We just don't know yet how long it's going to take to clear that channel. We do know that there are other ports that are preparing to absorb some of the traffic that's been diverted, as well as handle some of the export cargo that had to be diverted. We'll be watching closely to see the impacts of that, and tomorrow I'm going to convene different players across our supply chains, shippers, cargo owners, and workers, to better understand what they're facing and how we can help.
With regard to that meeting, Secretary, I'm glad you mentioned it. You talked today about the freight office that you created during the pandemic and the supply chain crisis that I know the administration has spent a lot of time on. That office has been busy working with supply chain stakeholders in this case to reappropriate, I presume, routes and destinations. Do you have a plan now for cars, for coal to land in other ports on the East Coast?
Yeah, what we're seeing right now is other ports are preparing to absorb some of those shipments. It really depends, though, on the type of shipment. Containers, obviously pretty standardized. A lot of places are equipped to handle shipping containers, but this is also a significant port for sugar. There are only so many places that can handle that particular type of shipment. There are other specific types of shipments that we're tracking, too. That's exactly why we're so glad that this freight office is up and running. This was created by the President's bipartisan infrastructure package. We stood it up in accordance with with that legislation, and it is coming in handy. It's already been helpful navigating some of the disruptions on the Red Sea due to Houthi attacks, and this is just one more case where it's showing the value of that coordination. This is not air traffic control. There's no one kind of tower, so to speak, or authority that tells ships where to go the way you have for aircraft. They are independent actors. We're bringing them to the table to make sure that there's better coordination. We're not trying to take over, but we want to make sure everybody's talking to each other.
I only have a minute left, Secretary. I appreciate your time today. You said earlier this is not going to be simple, quick, or easy. Do you have any idea how many years it will be before vehicles are crossing a new bridge in Baltimore?
It's simply too soon to say, but what I will say is we are going to work aggressively to support Maryland doing that as quickly as they safely and responsibly can. We should learn more very soon about the condition of the portions of the bridge that did not collapse and the condition of some of the infrastructure that is below the water line. That will help to inform an estimate of what it's going to take, but just too soon to put a date on it.